Tell us about the boy from New York City.
We're talking with Ken Walsh, who is one of two people that covers Washington for the Denver Post.
Ken Walsh, political correspondent for U.S. News and World Report.
Ken Walsh, senior editor and White House correspondent for U.S. News and World Report.
Ken Walsh is senior White House correspondent, longtime U.S. News and World Report correspondent.
You are originally from New York City.
Right.
Manhattan?
Right. I lived in Manhattan, grew up there. When we were 12, my family moved to New Jersey, and I went to school there and went to graduate school in Washington, D.C., went into the Army, and went out to Denver for the Associated Press.
Let's tell you a little bit about Ken Walsh, the political correspondent for U.S. News and World Report. He's been with the organization since January 1984. He's been in Washington 4 years, and he's married to a delightful woman who's the librarian and researcher for the Los Angeles Times in my office as well. Give her a plug.
And I remember a very good competition between the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News.
Well, this is something I'm very familiar with. We have one of the few remaining competitive newspaper markets in the country. Both papers are healthy, both papers are very aggressive, and I think it's been very healthy for the community and the region. I think it's a reality that people do get most of their information from TV, and that polls have shown that, and that's just the sense you get from just knowing people. For the rest of the country, there's a sense of almost of glance readership, that people only have 12 minutes or something with a newspaper, and so you got to give them a lot of short stories. And having worked for newspapers for a long time, I wish that people had more time to spend with them, but that's just not the way things are anymore.
Maybe it's just that our attention span as a country is so short now that people just don't want to pay attention to a speech like this as they used to.
Is it Gilma, Illinois?
Yes.
Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hello, Mr. Welch. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead, ma'am. Brooklyn, New York. You're on. Go ahead, please.
I just want to have a question about how long the media is going to continue to cover up information about ideal order psychic TV. You're being zapped right now, and the media continues to cover it up.
Mr. Walsh, you look like the person that wants to answer this phone call.
Well, I was going to say, I never think that you would beam some kind of strange rays at me. I have no idea what this call is talking about.
Mr. Walsh, let me start with you. Is the system broken, and how come?
Well, I think in many ways the system is broken. I think from our point of view on the White House press corps side, we see a lot of spin, we see a lot of propaganda.
I try to remain unaffiliated and nonpartisan. One thing to keep in mind is that we tend to focus on being a watchdog and an institutional critic of power, of people with power. And so when you have a Republican in power, people who support the Republicans tend to think we hate Republicans. The Democrats now think that we're all against Bill Clinton. If you look at how we've covered Clinton, I don't see how, if there's a liberal bias in the media, it's had any effect in protecting him. He's had a very rough time.
Go ahead, Ken, and then Susan, go ahead.
Mr. President, one of the lingering areas of hard feelings from the campaign is over your and the Democratic Party's attacks on the Republicans over Medicare. Since you're going to meet with the Republican leadership next week, how will you encourage them to be conciliatory and trust you now over Medicare, given the damage they incurred in the campaign over the issue?
Well, first of all, there are always a lot of hard feelings after every campaign.
Mr. Walsh.
President, I understand that you don't want to speculate about what your opponents might do now after the impeachment struggle is over, but I wonder what your feelings are after some period of reflection on the impeachment process, how you were treated, and if you feel resentment, relief, and how you think people will deal with this and see it 10 or 20 years from now.
I think it's best for me not to focus on that now. I think it's best for me to focus on my job.
You know, there's a very high probability that if you get an exclusive interview with the president, you're going to use it.
Have you ever known anybody that didn't?
No.
You talked to the president on Thursday. What's his mood these days?
Well, we caught him in a very good mood, and he's sort of between holidays. The chemistry was right for an interview. I found with Bush that there are a couple of ways to get him to give you an exclusive interview. One is to find a topic he's very interested in. And last year, we were doing a story on hunting, and he's a hunter, and he called me to talk about it. I interviewed President Obama a few weeks ago, and I talked about some of this with him. You know, he talks about, his aides talk about the idea that as soon as he took office, he was dealing with this incredible number of crises.
They came out even earlier this week on Monday with their cover that says after the avalanche. So we're talking to him.
You are one of the writers in this week's big piece about this, headline, A Burial for the Cold War at Sea. I want to ask you about the piece that is written on the side here for U.S. News, in which you wrote, with the headline being A Microcosm of the Bush Presidency, Gentlemen Prefer Bland, is the headline.
This is your cover story this week. What did you have to do with this?
Well, I wrote it.
Better than that, not much, huh?
Ken Walsh, who covers the White House for U.S. News and World Report, won the Ford Prize for distinguished reporting on the presidency during 1992. And the judges all agreed that he does an outstanding job. And particularly, they said his articles are sophisticated and offer insightful analysis of varied aspects of the presidency.
Please join me in that toast now to the President of the United States.
Conan, did you like the today's dinner, the halibut with the little baby carrots? Yeah. That was my idea.
Really?
It was my idea. I'm telling you, the Republicans will try to take credit for that, but I'm telling you, it was my idea.
Damn them.
I mean, I've been talking about baby carrots since 1992.
I want to tell you how honored I am to have been your president for the last year. And now to tell you what the next year will bring, I'd like to introduce my successor, Carl Lubsdorff of the Dallas Morning News. Thank you. A lot of things on his mind include North Korea, which he talked about at great length, his upcoming trip to Russia, and the domestic issues on the agenda for next year, including health care.
Today, a president needs to be an entertainer, needs to be part of the culture in the sense of keeping people interested. And our most effective presidents understand that. Our least effective presidents don't.
His new book is called Feeding the Beast: The White House versus the Press.
He's also the author of several books, including his most recent, Celebrity in Chief: The History of the Presidents and the Culture of Stardom.
The author of a book, Prisoners of the White House.
He is also the author of From Mount Vernon to Crawford, a history of the presidents and their retreat.
He's also the author of Air Force One, A History of the Presidents and Their Planes.
Presidents are often asked, especially in recent times, what books are you taking with you when you go away? And you always get the lists of books. President Obama and President Clinton, I must say, also did the same thing. Took stacks of books with them on vacation. Now, and I think they really did try to read them. It wasn't just for show. President Obama, we don't know yet what books he's taken, but I'm sure he's taken a number of them. Maybe he'll take a few of mine. That would be nice.
17th and Folsom in the Mission District. If it's going to flood anywhere in San Francisco, it's going to flood here.
It used to be a navigable waterway. So back in the day, before development, that was the center of a marshland.
One unknown does remain, and that's how President-elect Donald Trump might handle regulation of the marijuana industry.
With the new states that legalized, we're going to possibly triple retail sales in a couple of years.